I can't look back, it's too late now. My days are hours and I don't know how, but I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done. Welcome to the second episode of The Breakfast Ball. As our awesome assistant Mary pointed out, this is our second chance to make a first impression. We're newbies to this, obviously, so we noticed a couple things. For one, I have to stop tapping the table because that gets picked up on the microphone, and Richie thought he had an excess of ums in there. So, with that said,
I didn't think.
Yes, you didn't think. I know, right?
I know.
Well, when you're new to this stuff, that's what happens. Like I said last episode, when I said I was special growing up, I thought that was a good thing, but I'm not so sure now. But anyway, today's episode is Go Big or Go Home. So every setback is a setup for a comeback, and that's what we believe. So the second episode that we're due here is going to kind of focus on that type of thing. Richie and I teach a lot of golf. In season, between the two of us, over 200 lessons a month. So it gets interesting. A lot of the people that we work with talk about going out to play, incorporating things that they've learned of their lessons on the golf course. So the question they typically ask us is, when I go to play golf, what should I do out there? What should I work on? And I always say, well, what you should work on is playing golf. And those two words, play and golf. Play meaning play, have fun, right?
Yes.
Have fun, because that's, if you're not having fun out there, it's not worth your time. So when people say, what should I do when I get to the golf course? And Richie's heard me say this a million times. I say, just ask two questions. And they look at me like, well, what are the two questions? Where's the first tee? What's the course record? And people laugh at me, but like, hey, go big or go home. We are there to have fun. If it's not a fun experience, then, it's not worth your time. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit today about playing golf. And a question that Richie and I also get a ton of is, how do I get started? It's I believe in lifelong learning. And during the pandemic, I got a real estate license because I was watching way too much HGTV. I don't do a heck of a lot with the real estate license, but I got it because that's something that I did. Like I felt like I needed to learn. And like I mentioned last time, I took up guitar, ended up writing some songs, playing some music. Now I'm recording with artists, and like I'm thrilled. Like I think limitations, as we talked last time, are always put on yourself. So when they ask Richie and I about where should I start, what should I do, I've been recently looking at General George Patton quotes. Man, I wish this guy was still around, because like some of the stuff I'm reading this guy said, that's like it just jumped off the page at me. Like the one quote, a good plan executed violently now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. Yeah, like look at us. I mean, it took us 3 hours to figure out how to hook all this stuff up, and God knows we don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're now worldwide, baby. We got a podcast. So that's what I would encourage people to do is if you're don't worry about what all is going to take to get it done. Just do it. Fail your way to success. So it's a thought process. It's a mentality, I guess. I think you spoke to last time. Thinking well. What is the greatest limitation of a golfer, especially a competitive golfer? We talked about right. Yeah. I asked you, the question was, what was the limitation to a good player? And we said, is it the mechanics of the golf swing, or is it the self-imposed limitations? And you so articulately said
it was self-imposed.
Yeah,
it was mental.
Yeah, it's all mental. Like it's you put limitations on yourself, and that stinks. So, before I get to the questions, and I promise you, like last time, because I can talk all day, I promise you, Richie will give the dashing Richie Stoltz will give his opinion. But a story that was told to me, and it's probably like a whisper down the lane type of story, but Jack Nicklaus, who I think was the greatest golfer that ever lived, Tiger was definitely on his way to there, but fell off the beam a little bit sometime on the way. Tiger, I mean, obviously the best player of the past quarter century for sure, but Nicklaus won 18 majors and 19 runner-ups. That's it. 37 first or second places. That's really tough to beat. And watching, one of the I forget where I saw it, to be honest with you, but there was a story about Nicklaus had a putt, I believe at the U.S. Open, to tie it, to put it into a playoff. And Nicklaus lined up the putt, and he hit it, and it didn't go in. And he walked off, and I guess he went to the tent and met with reporters afterwards. And one reporter said, "Hey, Jack, what happened on 18 when you missed that putt?" And Nicklaus said, "Yeah, no, I didn't miss that putt." And I guess the reporter said, "No, Jack, you missed the putt on 18 to go into the playoff." And Nicklaus again, I didn't miss the putt. And then the reporter, now frustrated, "Jack, the putt didn't go in." And Nicklaus said, "Well, that's something different." And when I heard that story, I'm like, holy smokes. What a great belief system. He believed that he hit that putt as good as he could hit it, and there I go tapping the table again. He believed that, I know folks promise I'll get it right sometime, I promise. But his belief was that he lined it up, he did the best he could do, he hit it right where he wanted to do, and it just didn't go in. How awesome is that? Yeah. If we could all think that way, then failure is nothing but learning how to win. Yeah. Yep. Love it. I love it. And when you spend enough time around people that have achieved great things, you'll discover they think differently than the average person does. And I know, like I said last episode, people that self-deprecate all the time. I had a guy that used to work with me, so I don't self-deprecate. I'm a realist. You're a realist who never wins. So just saying. Anyway, so my first question for the dashing Richie Stoltz, would you say seeing is believing, or believing is seeing?
I think you have to believe it before you see it. So if you take a look at any top, say, athlete or tour pro, they don't start at the number one in the world. Tiger Woods didn't, he wasn't born as one of the best golfers. Same thing, Jack Nicklaus, he wasn't born as one of the best golfers. They had to believe that they can get there before they got there. Right? So you have to believe it before you can see it.
Yeah. I believe it. I think the seeing is believing is there's a degree of truth to that, because I think some people, when they come to us, especially like the guys who come way over the top of the golf ball, the guys who shank the golf ball typically think they're hitting off the toe rather than the hosel. And when you show them the proper path and they actually get to hit the golf ball from the inside, they're like, wow. And in that case, seeing is believing. But in terms of your own capability in life and in golf, and anything really, I mean, believing is the cornerstone. If you don't believe that you can do something, and I one of the guests we're going to have on the show at some point is my dear friend Chris Hammerquist. He always says to me, we were at the cigar bar the other night. I have one of my vices. I like a cigar, but we were talking, and I said, "Hey, our podcast just rolled out," and he looked at me. He's like, "Dude," he's like, "you just keep banging stuff out. I'm working on a new book and a bunch of other stuff we'll get to later." And he's like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "Well, I've been blessed, as I said last episode, my dad being a professional motivational speaker. I mean, I'm not done fighting until this is done." And I think Eric Thomas said, "You don't quit when you're tired. You quit when you're done." Yeah. I love that. Sometimes I'm tired, but I make my list of things to do, and I prioritize the book, The One Thing. That's how you get stuff done. So anyway, back to the theme of go big or go home. Let's just circle back to the theme of the breakfast ball, which is obviously second chances, as this is our second chances to make a first impression, as Mary would say. So Mary's back there smiling. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Yes. So underdog, right? So we spend, I spent a lot of time with the Rutgers golf team. We went from more or less a joke when I first started the program to being in national contention for the better part of a decade. I think 8 out of 10 years we were at the NCAA finals. And one of the angles I always used was, we're underdogs because we are literally one of the only state schools that makes or had made the national championship nearly every year. So Richie being a part of the team, that finished 16th in the country, and that year we knocked off the number 1 team in the country that year at the NCAAs. Richie's had a chance to hang around and be around a lot of great stories. So when I was getting ready to write up the rough outline for this story, I wanted your perspective on what's not necessarily like a Rudy or Hoosiers, because everybody knows those stories, but what would you say your greatest underdog story at Rutgers was? What's the greatest underdog?
I wanted to bring up dodgeball when you talked about underdogs, but since you said no,
Mary had us throwing wrenches at Rutgers students. Yes, that's what you had us doing. It was terrible.
But no, Magic Wands.
Magic Wands.
One of the players that played with us over at Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Magic Wands was a baseball player, and you actually told me all this.
Mm-hmm.
My first year there was Wands, I believe, second year.
Yep.
And his first year, he wasn't a starter. He was on, I think we had a C team at the time.
Far from.
He was, he was, I think it was, you told me he was shooting in the hundreds, 90s. 90s was a good score. And this is college golf, so
right.
He struggled.
As you know, like I love the movie Rudy. So anybody who wants to try out for this team, I tell the Rudy story. If you give it your all, I'll keep you.
Yeah.
You might be on a practice squad type of thing. And very few players take that to heart. But you're going to tell the story of the one.
Yeah.
So you tell. Yes.
Magic Wands was, when I got there, he was our number 5 guy. Or actually, I think when I first started, I think he was around 7 or 8.
Yeah,
and
probably
worked his way into the starting lineup, ended up going to conferences with us. He was, he ended up turning into a really good player, and the reason why is, he put in the work every single day.
Yeah.
I didn't think that someone could practice as much as I did when I was there, and Magic Wands might have got me beat.
That kid was a ball-beating machine.
He was a worker.
Yeah, the swing was a little unorthodox, but he made it work. And my oldest son, who was the captain of that team, and Colton, I love him to death. The boy has a lot of talent. But I remember him and a couple of other guys after the first round of tryouts were like, are you going to pick the team based upon, the tryout numbers? Or are you going to base it upon, the golfer? And there was questions as to, what my methodology is. And at Rutgers, people ask me, was it difficult having my son on the team? And the answer is absolutely not. Like, when I recruit people to come to play at Rutgers, I tell them all the same thing. And the parents sit down in front of me, and you know me. I'm like, yeah. They ask me, is my son going to play for you? And, what's the criteria? And I say, well, I have favorites. And at that point, they all sit back in the chair like, oh, man, this guy has favorites. I'm like, yeah, no. And you'd be lying. Like, you're lying to people if you say you like everyone the same. I don't. Yeah. I don't like everybody the same. And you'd be lying to me if you said you like everybody the same, too. Nobody does. The point being is, I don't have favorites. Or I have favorites, but I don't play favorites. I have a very specific formula that we use to play at Rutgers. And number one thing is we have a 36 to 54 hole tryout. And wherever you stand after that whole tryout is where you're positioned on the team. And then after each tournament, the first 3 players are always safe. But that 4th and 5th spot, we play 3 to 4 rounds a week, plus tournament play, and you have a floating average. Mm-hmm. And wherever, like Bill Parcells said, you are what your numbers say you are. So after that second tryout, the Magic Wands, is my nickname for Brandon, was the Magic Wands. Because that kid's swing was unorthodox, but damn it, he was Rudy, man. That kid outworked everybody. Yep. And his numbers dictated So there were players that had more talent out there, like more
For
golf
sure.
talent. Again,
Yeah,
hit
for
the ball
sure.
further, more acumen, could hit more shots, create different things.
Knew more about playing golf.
Knew more
Played longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they weren't beating them.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, let me tell you what, there's two types of college coaches out there. One's being hired and one's being fired. Like my other preach, as you know, is world domination. Like I do not see the point of doing anything unless you want to be great at it.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah. Mary's nodding back there. Yeah, you know, people like and again, there's nothing wrong with it. But people that tell me, you know, I play golf for, you know, the enjoyment to relax. I don't know, Richie. You tell me. Do you enjoy anything or relax? Anything you're bad at? Like I don't. Like if I'm bad at something, I typically either work harder to get great at it or I quit.
I can't do something I'm bad at.
Yes, right.
I can't.
Who does that? Like that's the person who self-deprecates, right? So which gets me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about was the people that take lessons with us. I'm not gonna lie. I handpicked my lessons for about a decade back in the day. I only wanted to work with players that wanted to be great. So the players that you know, when I go to church, haven't been as much lately as I should be, to be honest. So if my pastor's watching this, sorry. But you know, our old pastor that was at our church, he used to give this speech on Christmas. He would say, "Welcome members, welcome visitors, and welcome visiting members." Yeah, the Christmas and Easter crew. But you know, if you're going to be good at something, and Les Brown, right? We talk
Yes.
about Les Brown all the time. Les Brown, I just like the way that man delivers. He says things. Here's a guy who was labeled, I guess, educatively retarded, and has no formal college education, and at one point was the world's greatest motivational speaker. He was elected to office. He had his own TV show. I mean, I love people like that.
Yeah.
But he said in one of his speeches that or podcasts that I watched or wherever it was, that most people don't fail because they set their goals really, really high, shoot for the stars, and don't get there. Most people fail is because they basically set their eyes on mediocrity and do get there, which I love. So, Richie, question to you. When you have a student who is probably not practicing like they should because they're intimidated, right? They're scared. Like, you know, trying something new is scary.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the people that say, well, I don't have the time to practice. And and you know it's because, like, you know, it's probably part of them is scared. So how do you encourage somebody to try to achieve greatness?
I like to talk about baby steps. So when you're getting lessons, yes, you know, sometimes it is going to be hard or frustrating when you don't get something. But if you take it in baby steps, typically speaking, we'll give a couple tips for you or a couple, you know, swing thoughts for you to have to go practice on. Work on those things. Work on just those couple. Get those right. And then go on to some new stuff when you come back to us.
Yeah. Small, chewable bites. I think
Yeah.
that's the way that we describe it.
You can think of it this way, too. If you get 0.1% better every day, well, you'll be at the top in no time.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Is it Kaizen? It's a Japanese term, but it's really, I mean, if you get like whatever 1/4% better at something and you practice it 10,000 times, by the time you get there, you're going to be great.
Yeah. That's on my wall.
That's on your wall. I know, right? I know. It's. I don't know. I think at the end of the day that you know, if you want to be great at something, you want to be a lifelong learner. You just have to. The one thing, the book that
Yes.
we've referred to yet, and I use that with people. Actually, I somewhat life coach a little bit too. You know, it's a bestseller book, but you know, this is what a lot of people like. I had a very dear friend of mine. She used to talk about cleaning her desk or cleaning her office space or her room, and she would do that a lot. But like the basic premise of the One Thing book is let's just say you make your list, paying the bills, creating a updated resume, and cleaning my desk. All three things have valid, things that need to be done. But if you put cleaning your desk first, as opposed to paying the bills or updating the resume, you want to do the one thing first that gets you to where you need to be. And, that's the list of 3 things that we always create. So, and then once you get those 3 things done, then you start a new list. And that's, I think that's a good metaphor for life anyway. I always say, like, I believe great things are yet to come, and we're not going to stop fighting until we get to the end of this, right?
Yes.
Done. And the theme of today is go big or go home. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to achieve great things, right, what do? Right? You list your priorities, and you don't stop. And when you're tired, you stop when you're done.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So, did I miss anything? I feel like I
don't think so. I think you covered everything.
You covered everything.
I think so.
By the way, Richie is a great example of someone who applies the logic of practicing and working on being great. He's a practice machine, right?
Yes.
So, he'll call me sometimes like in an odd hour. And I'm thinking, Richie, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I want to work my putting. Like, I love the phone call. I do, because very few people want to be great like Richie wants to be great. So, our new course record holder at Westwood here, 61.
Yeah.
Right?
I had to believe it.
You had to believe it. Yeah.
I had to believe it.
Yeah. Well, that Annika Sorenstam book, I met both of her, 2 of her coaches at the National Coaching Conference, and the name of her book was Vision 54. And like, what does that mean? Well, like, if you've ever birdied a hole in golf, or if you ever birdied 2 holes in a row, her basic premise was, if you can birdie 2 in a row, then you can birdie all 18, thus 54. So that's what Vision 54 is. But enough said. I thank you for watching our podcast. We love the fact that you're here. Please follow us on Facebook or on the web. If you need to reach us, we're at South Jersey Golf School. Schools, I should say, at Gmail, and Mary will get right back to you, and she's smiling in the background. But we do obviously private group instruction. We do public speaking. We've done corporate engagements and whatnot, motivational speaking, not just in golf, although golf is clearly our backbone. And we've done special events. We did, we were doing a special event a month there for a while.
Yeah, we had Ladies' Night. We had Bourbon Cigars. We had St. Patty's Day event. We had
St. Patrick, and we did Singles Mingle too.
Yes.
Which we're all over the place. Like my dad used to say, I'm like crabgrass, I'm all over the place. But so if you need to reach us, that's way. And we're coming out with a book and some teaching aids coming up down the road too. So stay tuned for that. But I'm Bob Cardia, and this is the Dashing
Richie Stoltz.
There you go.
Sorry.
Thank you for tuning in to Breakfast Ball, and we will see you again next week. Glass of bourbon, my bourbon, my bourbon, Alcohol is no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.